Dr. Yemaja Jubilee.
All over this land. Let's spread a little love through our hearts and hands. With love rising like the morning sun, we'll spread love till the day is done. All right then. Let's spread a little joy. I, Ann Dolores Brown, my birth given name, started my early education in Charlotte County, Virginia, in Sachs, Virginia, attending two-room brick school called Galilee School during segregation, during Jim Crow. It was two rooms. We had an outdoor toilet, we had an outdoor pump.
And so when we talk about what schooling looked like then, and very, very basic, I mean, amenities were very poorly funded. It really wasn't spectacular.
And every day, one of the things that stands out in my mind when I first started school was we had to say our chores. We had to say my fingernails are clean, I brushed my teeth, my hair has been combed, and I have on clean underwear, okay? We had to do that every day. Then we had to raise our hand and say Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, all right? And then as the day progressed on, they gave us book to read. Some of the books that I first read was Fun with Dick and Jane, all right? And with Fun and Dick and Jane, it was all white people. There was blonde hair. There were no black people in the books. There were no black images in the book. And we read out of those books all through the first through the fourth grade. And then one of the first black books that I got introduced to was called Little Sambo. And that book, when I think about it now, it just kind of turns me off.
Was fought in 1896. It decided that separate but equal accommodations were okay for black and white individuals. Separate was very, very obvious and apparent. The equal was kind of the bit more ambiguous because, in large part, equality and separate but equal depended on who was making the definition.
What they did was built new schools, and I went to Bacon District Elementary School, which was still in Sachs, and that school is still operating right now. I ended up graduating from there from the 7th grade. And then I went to Central High School in Charlotte Courthouse, Virginia, which was still segregated. Graduated from there in 1965. That class was all black, but I did graduate at the top of my class, okay? I think I might have been number 3. And that's why Miss Irma Blackwell, who was superintendent of the black schools, said, okay, you're gonna apply to Longwood.
So when colleges at that time, in a lot of capacities, were starting to try desegregation, they started with kind of grad school. The first African-American undergraduate students in the late 1960s. There was a student admitted, I believe, in 1966 or 7. That student did not finish.
When we got the letter back and it said I wasn't accepted, and okay, being a black and doing Jim Crow times, I didn't really see the significance of all of what was happening because I was only like 16, 17 years old. But Miss Blackwell was upset. She was very, very upset. She said, I'm gonna find out what's going on with this. Okay, and she said, get in the car. I got in her car and we came over here to Longwood. She put me out in the area, like where the rotunda is. I was seated out there from the registrar's office. And I saw all these white students going by. They were looking at me. And the look on their face was, like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? But I sat there patiently and I waited. And when Miss Blackwell came out storming out the doors, and she said to me, you did not get accepted, quote, because you were colored. I went to Virginia Union for a year, and then I ended up getting married. My education stopped at that point, if you want to call it, in the system, in the educational system, whether college, and it stopped right there for a long, long time. I ended up getting a divorce, and then I went on for a number of years without having finished my education. And then I had a daughter, which is Cosette Deshawn, and it dawned on me, I wanted to get my degree. The other friend and I applied to Virginia Commonwealth University. 2 hours every single day, because both of us was determined to finish school. And then, after, I was doing really good, and then I saw where I still needed to have another year. I finished my year at VCU. Oh, that was such an amazing experience. And I had to walk across that stage, and they handed my degree to me, and my mother was in the audience, holding my daughter and my father. And I came down off the stage. I said, Mama, you said I wasn't going to do it. I did it. Here's my degree, okay? I am not a victim of any of the circumstances that I've been through in trying to get my education. I am not a victim. I am victorious. I have been put in so many boxes and labels in my life during this educational process. So many, being black, being colored, being a Negro, all of that. Being a woman, being a black woman. I have gone through the system, but I'm still here. I'm still standing, tall like a tree. Just look at me. I'm still standing, arms so high, high in the sky that nobody can deny that I'm beautiful, bold, and brilliant, badass Nubian queen. I had gone to a spiritual retreat, and they had a table discussion going on, talking about the things that had scarred you and you had never talked about. And you know what it was? Longwood University. That was the first major scar that I got, that I really recognized because of the color of my skin. And I had I wrote another letter in between all that and asked for an honorary doctorate. I had to write and request it. And they had all this information, and they had anything about it. What's happening with that? Miss Jubilee, just be patient. Something's happening. Okay, it's going to be good. You're going to love it. Okay. And then finally, he said, you will receive an honorary doctorate on May the 19th of 2024. And I said, okay. And it was like a burden had been lifted from my heart and it's like, I feel like I had trauma in my cells. I had trauma in my cells from that scar, and I had never processed it. And that was 2024. Incident happened in 1964. Look how many years that was. But what I'm saying is, when things are meant to happen, it will be revealed. You will be shown what to do. Just trust the process and keep on moving.
Last year, we collaborated with her and their Triple C team to put on a Juneteenth celebration in July of 2024. We had Dr. Opal Lee, grandmother of Juneteenth, rather, show up and attend as well. So we just have really never fallen out of contact.
My knowledge of Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is one of those great things in life where sometimes life, I think, just works out in ways it's meant to be. About 2 years ago, I had a couple of students who wanted to tell the story of Twin Lakes State Park. Cole Pillow and Kendall Clapham did a documentary, and it was really about her father and his role as part of the CCC to build Twin Lakes State Park. And so they went out there at one point and did an interview where there was 5 different generations of the Jubilee family in one room. And so they produced this great documentary on the history of Twin Lakes State Park.
Long story short, I was photographing the volunteer efforts at Twin Lakes State Park, and they were giving a tour of the museum, and they had signage and things they were talking about how Dr. Jubilee's father helped build the park and stuff like that. So that's originally how I got the idea, and then she connected me with Dr. Jubilee.
She was singing the praises of my students and said, you know what, if you ever have some students in the future that I can work with again and we have projects, I would love to do that. And so then about a year ago, she was planning an anniversary of the Juneteenth, and she wanted to honor Dr. Opal Lee, who's considered the grandmother of Juneteenth. And so at Twin Lakes State Park, which means something personally to her, she organized an event in the summer over the July 4th weekend where she invited Dr. Opal Lee there to talk about her journey as a grandmother of Juneteenth. She was looking for a student to document that. And I had a student, George Gaston, who was fit the perfect bill. He had the ability and he had the availability to do this documentary. And so he worked with her all semester and did that.
Yeah, so I met Dr. Yemaja Jubilee in November of 2023 over an email. We had been connected through a mutual friend who told me about this really amazing Juneteenth celebration that was happening at Twin Lakes State Park. And so I got to talking with her. She told me all about kind of her vision and how she loves to document things because, you know, they become immortal once they're documented. So I was in the market to create a documentary, got connected with her, who is just one of the most amazing people in the world. And we had been basically connected at the hip ever since.
And again, sang his praises and was just thrilled to work with him. And so then she came to me and I kind of talked to her a little bit about someone needs to do a documentary on your story. So the relationship continues.
I am breaking an ancestral pattern. Maybe that's the way I need to describe it. Because it is. It's an ancestral pattern for, as a black woman, not owning your voice, I'm fifth generation. That ancestral pattern is broken. I was turned down because I was black. But look where I stand today. Longwood University made up for it. Longwood University recognized that they needed not only corrected for me, but for all the other, my black brothers and sisters that had gone through injustices. And that allowed me to see that what you do, going back to purpose and service, is not all the time about you. When you get an idea and it keeps persisting in your mind, heart, and spirit, it becomes about everybody else. It becomes about everybody else.
I watched my mom work many long hours, many countless hours in achieving the goals that she wanted to achieve, as far as the education, as far as just developing into the person that she has evolved into.
Every woman has to come to the place in her life where she decides whether she's going to be her authentic self or not. And Yemaja, and I certainly had a crisis point of that in my own life. And so Yemaja plays that out loud and large for other people to see it and be able to say, this can be my story too.
She really influenced me to live in your skin, to be who you are, to, you know, no matter how different you might seem, she just kind of light and low where, you know what, dude, embrace yourself, just love yourself for who you are and be who you are, no matter what anybody says. And just, she gave me that empowerment to just, hey, bro, walk in your skin. Love who, like she said, look in the mirror and love that person every day.
She gave me encouragement on a deeper level, you know, because she's there, she's with me, she calls me, she physically helps to help me maintain my purpose and to pursue it and not to forget.
She entrusted Kendall and I with telling her family's story, a generational story. I think I realized in that moment how much this meant to her, but also how much faith she was putting in these two college students that, looking back on, had not as good of an idea of what they were doing as, you know, they probably should have, doing something this important. But she had faith in us and she worked with us. So that was probably the moment that really hit me. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm doing something impactful.
My favorite sort of collection of memories is waking up to voicemails from her of ideas and inspirational moments and just any sort of thought she was having. She would call me at very early hours. I'd wake up, I'd see the voicemail, I'd listen to it, I'd jot down as many notes as I could, I'd listen to it a few times just to make sure I got everything out of it. And so many of those ideas were translated into the documentary, whether just through the soul and the heart and the passion of those ideas, or whether they were specific things of like, let's get this person, let's talk to this person, that led to just, you know, amazing content.
Documentary is generally about someone else's story, right? Sometimes you may be involved in that a little bit, but generally you're telling someone else's story. And so she has the story, she has the connections, and then my students are the ones who gets to tell the story. So getting to be in the middle of that and getting to be involved in that and getting to see my students put in the work, but then my students benefit from that work is truly what inspires me as an educator.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is everything and more.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is a dynamo.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is a force to be reckoned with.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is uplifting and inspiring.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is a trendsetter.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is passionate.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is charismatic.
Dr. Yemaja Jubilee is fantastic, my mother, and all of the above.